What's happening at Nintendo right now is the worst crisis the company has faced in 3 decades. Behind closed doors in Kyoto, the executives are in full crisis mode. Their stock has been cut almost in half in 5 months. They just slashed Switch 2 production by a third. Even their own customers just filed a class action against them in a Seattle courtroom. On the surface, we keep being told everything is fine. The Mario movie is breaking records, the Universal Park is sold out, all is well in the kingdom. It's a lie. In February, their own president walked into a room full of investors in Kyoto and admitting on the record that overseas sales were missing every single target they had set. A few days ago, Nintendo warned investors that their net profit will collapse by 27% over the next year. It's not Wall Street predicting the crisis, it's Nintendo. The company that gave us Mario, Zelda and Pokemon is in deeper trouble than anyone wants to admit. In this video, I'll tell you what is actually happening. Why is Nintendo taking fire from every direction at the same time? And what does it mean for the future of the company? I've been running businesses in Asia for over 26 years. I see how Asian companies actually operate from the inside. The strategies, the mistakes, the cultural blind spots Western media never talk about. If that's a perspective you find useful, hit subscribe. On May 8th, Nintendo published their annual results for the fiscal year that just ended. Net profit up 52%, sales nearly doubled. On paper, the most successful year in the company's history. But you have to look inside that record year to understand what really happened. Because the launch quarter was extraordinary, and every quarter after that, things got worse. By the third quarter, the one that ended in December 2025, Nintendo's gross margin had collapsed from 59% down to 37%. That kind of drop almost never happens to a company this size outside of a recession or a global crisis. Wall Street watched the numbers come in, and the response was of another world. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Bloomberg's analysts, every major desk on the planet simply cut their profit forecast for Nintendo by more than $1 billion a year, every year for the next 4 years. The stock kept bleeding. Tens of billions of dollars in market value gone in months. The smartest money in the world looked at Nintendo's books and started running for the exits. And then Nintendo itself confirmed they were right. In the same May 8th press release, the company warned shareholders that the year ahead will be brutal. Net profit forecast to drop 27%, sales expected to fall 11%. A new round of price hikes coming onto the Switch 2 up 20% in Japan, 11% in the US, 6.4% in Europe. A company that prints money doesn't warn its investors of a profit collapse for fun. They do it because they see the wall coming. And from gamers' perspective, it's not much better. Go on Reddit right now. Search for Switch 2. The mood is something Nintendo has not seen in 20 years. People are angry, like for real. The complaints are all over the internet about Mario Tennis Fever, about Tomodachi Life, or about the Switch 2 version of Animal Crossing, the same game from 2020 with a fresh coat of paint sold for $10 more. The Nintendo Direct that everyone has been waiting for hasn't happened in months. And according to leaks that multiple reliable insiders have now confirmed, the next big Mario won't arrive until 2027. The company that built 40 years of trust on a steady flow of magical games has gone quiet, and the audience has noticed. Inside the industry, the message is even harsher. Studios that build games for the Switch 2 are openly frustrated. Some big publishers, 10 months in, still haven't been given the dev kits they need to make their games run properly. A major one even told a journalist, off the record, that their Switch 2 sales had come in below their lowest internal estimate. And yes, since 82% of all software sold on the Switch 2 in the US is built by Nintendo, the third parties like independent studios are getting crumbs. People in this industry don't speak publicly against Nintendo, but right now, behind the scenes, they are. And how can I not mention the leak? In late March, an online insider went on a podcast and laid out what looks like Nintendo's entire game roadmap for the next 2 years. Every surprise the company was holding for later. A former senior PR manager at Nintendo of America went on YouTube and said the company is, in his words, absolutely furious. Nintendo is now in full crisis mode internally. There's an active hunt for the source of the leak, NDAs being reviewed, partner relationships under tension. So, To perfectly understand what just happened to Nintendo, you have to go back to a meeting that probably took place sometime in late 2024 in a conference room in Kyoto. Nintendo's executives were finalizing the price of the Switch 2. The original Switch had launched at $300 in 2017 and built one of the most successful platforms in gaming history. Logic said the new console should sit somewhere around $350, maybe $400. Instead, Nintendo's strategy was bold. They priced the Switch 2 at $450 in the US, 50% more than the original. In dollar terms, the most expensive mainstream Nintendo console ever made. That decision didn't come from greed. It came from a problem with global cost. The Japanese yen has been falling against the dollar for 3 years. Back in 2017, when the original Switch launched, a dollar bought you 114 yen. By the time the Switch 2 arrived, it bought 150. Now, a weaker yen is usually good news for Japanese exporter. Every dollar earned abroad turns into more yen back home. But Nintendo isn't a normal Japanese exporter anymore. The Switch 2 isn't built in Japan. It's assembled in Vietnam, in China, with components from Korea and Taiwan, all priced in dollars. So, while the weak yen helped Nintendo's revenue side, it inflated the cost side even faster. And that was before the rest of the world started piling on. Inflation pushed up component prices. Labor costs in Asia kept rising. Logistics never fully recovered from the chaos of the early 2020s. So, Nintendo had a choice: eat the rising cost and watch margins collapse, or pass them on to customers. They chose the customer. In Japan, locals got a special version locked to the local language for the equivalent of $330. The West? Well, they paid the bill. That choice would have worked in any other decade. Nintendo had been the only mainstream choice for portable gaming since the PlayStation Vita died. Whatever they charged, fans paid. Except this time, the Western buyer walked into the store and found a Steam Deck on the next shelf for $50 less, with a library of thousands of PC games. Microsoft offers a Game Pass for $15 a month. Sony had launched the PlayStation Portal and a year-long PS Plus subscription that gave you access to hundreds of games. For the first time in 15 years, the American family staring at the Switch 2 had alternatives. A lot of them put their money somewhere else. Then the second blow landed. And this one, nobody in Kyoto saw coming. Every AI company on Earth, OpenAI, Google, Meta, Anthropic, started buying memory chips at a scale the world had never seen to feed their data centers. Memory had always been one of those quiet, predictable costs in any electronics business. By early 2026, the price of the chips Nintendo needed had nearly doubled in a single quarter. The console they had already committed to building was suddenly far more expensive to produce than the price they were selling it for. That's the gross margin you saw earlier falling off the cliff. That's not bad management. It's more of a global shock hitting a hardware company that already had its pricing locked in. And while all that was unfolding, Donald Trump's tariff landed on Japanese imports like a final insult.
今般米国政府がすでに課している追加関税に加え、
Nintendo absorbed it and passed the cost to consumers. It didn't end well. When the Supreme Court ruled the tariffs illegal 6 months later, they didn't adjust the price accordingly. That's what opened the door to that Seattle class action I told you about earlier. And then, just to close the trap, the war in the Middle East ignited the global shipping lanes. For a company shipping hardware across the world, it's now suddenly more expensive for everything everywhere at the same time. The reason all of this is breaking now, all at once, is that none of it was supposed to happen at the same time. The Kyoto playbook, set the price, hold the line, never apologize, never discount, has worked for Nintendo through every crisis of the last 40 years. It worked through the Wii U disaster, it worked through Sony and Microsoft throwing billions at their own consoles. It's failing now for the first time because of this perfect storm. This is exactly what Japanese executives hate the most, when the world changes faster than tradition allows you to adapt. Nobody wants to be the executive suggesting that the company's core philosophy might be wrong. I've spent 26 years doing business in Asia, so when I look at Nintendo, I'm not guessing how a Japanese boardroom thinks. I've experienced that. If that's a perspective you find useful, hit subscribe. Now, despite everything I've just said, Nintendo is not going anywhere. The company is sitting on roughly $14 billion in the bank with zero debt. That's enough money to keep the entire company running for years without selling another single console. While Sony and Microsoft burn cash to stay competitive, Nintendo has a war chest most countries will envy. They can take a bad year, they can even take 3. I'm not even counting the intellectual property. Mario, Zelda, Pokémon, Donkey Kong, Animal Crossing, Splatoon. Outside of Disney, no entertainment company on this planet owns characters this beloved by this many generations. The Mario Galaxy movie crossed $800 million at the box office and is on track to become the first film of 2026 to break $1 billion. The Universal theme park in Orlando, Super Nintendo World, has been packed since the day it opened. Pokémon, the franchise Nintendo co-owns, is still the highest grossing media franchise in history, bigger than Star Wars, Marvel, even bigger than Mickey Mouse. The companies that try to compete with this kind of cultural depths spend decades and billions trying to build it. The Switch 2 itself is also not a fail. Whatever the headlines say, the console has sold over 17 million units in less than a year. That's faster than the original Switch or the PS5. And this is where the story gets complicated. The demand collapsed, but the demand was extraordinary at first, then cooled in the West. This isn't Nintendo's first crisis. The Wii U sold barely 13 million units in its entire life. The 3DS launched at the wrong price and had to be cut twice. Every time, Nintendo absorbed the hit, shipped a better product, and came back stronger. Iwata, the former CEO, cut his own salary in half during the Wii U disaster rather than fire his team. That culture is still in the building. So, when investors panic and analysts cut estimates, it pays to remember what Nintendo actually is. A company with no debt and a track record of surviving worse than this. Nintendo isn't the first global giant to crash into this exact wall, and they won't be the last. The pattern repeats every decade with companies 10 times bigger than this video can fit in. Walmart spent 9 years trying to crack Germany. They walk in with American-style greeters at the door, employees forced to do morning chants, and the same always low prices slogan that worked in Arkansas. The Germans found the greeters intrusive. The cheering ritual creeped them out. And Aldi and Lidl, two German chains nobody outside Europe had even heard of, quietly destroyed Walmart on price. Walmart left Germany having lost over $1 billion. Same confidence, different country, total failure. And it worked the other way too. Mobike, the Chinese bike-sharing giant that took over Beijing and China in 18 months, tried to expand into Europe and Singapore with the exact same playbook. But with different regulations, commuting habits, and infrastructure, they burned tons of cash trying to make the Chinese model work in cities it was never designed for. Within 3 years, they are pulled out of every major market outside China. And honestly, this is very close to what Nintendo is experiencing right now. The market around them changed faster than the company itself. All of these companies confuse what made them successful with a formula that travels. It's two completely different things. You don't have to be a CEO or a global founder to be exposed to this. If you ever moved abroad and tried to live the way you live back home, the food, the friendships, the work habits, you felt a small version of this. And if you're an entrepreneur thinking about sourcing in Asia, hiring in or selling into the Middle East, you're about to roll straight into this pattern unless you respect it. It's literally what we deal with every day at Statrys, the company I run, helping entrepreneurs set up and operate across Asia. If that's where you are right now, thinking about Asia, sourcing here, building something international, there's a link in the description below to set up a Statrys account. The lesson here is simple but expensive. Most people who go global think they're exporting a product. What they're actually exporting is a set of assumptions. Those assumptions are invisible until they break. And when they break in another country, you don't get a warning, you just get the bill. Nintendo is going to pay that bill. They have the cash to absorb it. But most companies and most people don't. So here's my question to you. Have you ever watched a brand, a product or a company try to land in your country and miss the mark completely? Or maybe the opposite. You saw a foreign company adapt brilliantly and win? Drop the example in the comments, I want to hear it. See you in the next video.